Let's be joined now by Dr. Naledi Pandor, who's the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. Dr. Pandor, Minister, thank you so much indeed for joining us. Your thoughts on this very sad moment?
Good evening, and good evening to all the viewers of SABC. Indeed, it is a sad moment, the loss of a remarkable person who I think has left an indelible mark on the world and will be remembered throughout history.
What do you think that, the Commonwealth was certainly a vehicle that brought Africa and the United Kingdom together in a way. What do you think her role was, Afro-Saxon, English, African relations?
Well, she certainly loved the Commonwealth. She would always pay attention, would participate, and I think took the Commonwealth very seriously. And to some degree, her status and aura gave credence to the body, and despite its historical origins, it certainly continued on a platform of solid cooperation between members of the Commonwealth and Great Britain and, of course, Her Majesty. She really loved the Commonwealth, would attend the CHOGM meetings religiously until it became difficult for her to do so. And you would have seen earlier this year when Rwanda assumed the chair, Prince Charles represented Her Majesty at the Heads of Government meeting.
You yourself spent a lot of time in the United Kingdom. Your thoughts about her reign during your time there and perhaps what she brought to life there, particularly for many immigrants that had come from the Commonwealth?
Well, for many, sometimes it was bittersweet. There would be those who love her, particularly those from some of the smaller Caribbean islands, which the royal family spent quite a lot of time on. So you would have Caribbeans from Barbados or Bahamas who had a strong appreciation of the royal family, and particularly the Queen. And I think the older British Caribbean citizens thought of the Queen as the Queen. The younger ones had less of an attachment, even though they had been born in Britain. With ourselves, I suppose, as South Africans, there was, somewhat of a love-hate, but probably more love than hate. And we really were welcomed in the country and lived as exiles. There was a very strong anti-apartheid movement in Britain. And of course, O.R. Tambo lived there for many years and was much respected. So maybe I could conclude by saying the anthem in Britain was the first anthem I learned to sing. So there's that kind of relationship, at school. And, there were those in the working class areas where I lived who wouldn't really have that strong attachment, but maybe our parents or grandparents had that, stronger feeling. As young people, it was, sort of posh people, but much admired, broadly loved. And I think in her later years came to be widely respected by all national groups in the United Kingdom.
A lot of people will be trying to make sense of the relationship South Africa had with the United Kingdom over time, and she was queen at a very difficult period of history for South Africans in particular. How do we make sense, do you think, of that period of time, colonial era, which some people say we still have scars from?
Well, I think all enduring leaders have many facets to their life and to the contribution that they make to world affairs. She played a very, very, I think, important role in a range of areas. I've made reference to the Commonwealth, and in her time, it has grown into a fairly influential a body with a very, very large platform of initiatives and projects that it supports. It has endured, and I think when you speak of the Queen, there's the contribution to charity, there's the very hard work, but also that, for me, that sense of stability, of endurance, of a presence. You couldn't ignore her. You had to recognize that here was a formidable person known throughout the world, and certainly making her presence personally felt throughout the world.
And she was a woman, we understand, was quite clued up in terms of international affairs and things that were going on around the world, even if she wasn't vocal most of the time.
I think she was extremely well read. If one had the opportunity, when there those long lines and you would greet her, have a brief moment, and you mention the country that you come from, she'd have a word which would be very accurate about your country. So, she was very well-read, was interested, and had a comment and an interest in everyone. So I think a sharp person who didn't tire from getting to know more of the world and about the world.
And when one travels around a city like London, you hear so many different languages, people from all over the world, literally. And so one gets a sense that, yes, there was a Commonwealth, but there was a world of nations that she was queen over in her country.
Well, certainly, if you look at the pictures that we're seeing on the screens now, the people that will gather at Buckingham Palace and those that will go to Balmoral will come from all communities, all language groups, all races. All of them feel they have some attachment to her. She was very popular. I suppose it was maintaining the tradition, so it has somewhat of a fantasy and yet real, a royal family having, the ruling in a very, very significant world power and country. So, it's like just an amazing fairy tale. And then, of course, the love story, herself and the Duke of Edinburgh eventually having, the family. And for many women, I think being able to balance all, these multiple roles that women have, and doing so with great grace.
Part of the role of the monarchy in the United Kingdom is charity and service. And this is something that she took seriously. And is that something that we experienced beyond the UK's borders on our continent?
Well, certainly, some of her initiatives influenced programs in the Commonwealth. There are many higher education programs that our young people participate in, and she played a role in shaping those programs. She had a great interest in education and, of course, in matters of the environment. South Africa's stand at the Chelsea Flower Show was, I'm told, a popular stopping point for her. So definitely many charities, a great commitment to animals in particular, and to care for animals. And she was also somewhat of a comedienne, loved joking, and would have a quick quip on various matters of the day, and was known sometimes to have a sharp tongue.
So people are calling this the end of an era, and it certainly is, because it's been quite a long era, but I get a sense that she was probably the last of that kind of monarch, old school, as it were.
Well, let's see. There's now a new monarch in place, King Charles III. He seems to have taken on as Prince of Wales many of the challenges that confront the world today, so the modern difficult issues that we must respond to. Let us see how he juggles these issues and his new responsibilities, and what form of leadership he gives to the Commonwealth. The statement he made in Kigali at the CHOGM meeting was a very strong statement about the role that Britain as a former colonial power had played, both in entrenching slavery, but also contributing many Britons to ending it. So I am looking with some keenness to see how he will meet the 7-decade history of great leadership.
Yeah, and our presidents have met the Queen over time as well, so always a relationship there with our leaders and her.
Yes, no, indeed. The first state visit was when President Mandela was president of a newly democratic South Africa. And one of my favorite pictures is me as Deputy Chief Whip, of course, far less wrinkled than I am now, sitting behind her and President Mandela in the National Assembly. So yes, she loved visiting South Africa, and you'd always see that she was energetic and enthused by her interaction, particularly with our new democracy. I think when she spoke the first time in the new post-94 National Assembly, you had that sense of almost, a very visible joy that she was speaking in a free South Africa, having visited the country in her early years.
Dr. Naledi Pandor, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, thank you so much indeed for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts at this very sad time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, so Queen Elizabeth II has passed, and we are bringing you rolling coverage, and we will be covering this story for the next few days. The funeral expected in about 10 days' time. And this will probably be a sending off that you've never seen before. Many of us, our lifetimes, and we've all got grey hair, some of us, that's all we've ever known. And I have a memory of the Queen myself, the Silver Jubilee of 1977. I was living in Coventry in the United Kingdom, and these were big events. She would travel the entire country, meeting her citizens and her subjects, and we'd have street parties. And there was another one recently, her Diamond Jubilee, I believe. And it is a time when you see a country coming together to celebrate the life of a monarch. And yeah, as a little boy, I have a souvenir as well of that time. We were all given pocket knives, and girls were given bracelets, I think. And we had a street party, and this went on right across the United Kingdom. And she travelled the length and breadth of the country, and we all lined up on the side of the street. and waved and went mad. And there was a sense of anticipation when she was coming to town. And we heard from Laura Makin Isherwood a little bit earlier on that everybody remembers the time that they saw the Queen, met the Queen, and if we were lucky, got very close and spoke to her.